This book is called In the Woods. It's part of a series of books done by two men who are trained architects working in Italy, and they began to notice that they were good at visual communication, and they wanted to extend that to children and young readers and young learners. The two people who designed this book and worked on it together are Ermanno Cristini and Luigi Puricelli. On the pages that follow, you can see that there are many living things identified. A sulfur butterfly, some English ivy, a blackberry bush, a wren, a field mouse, a red squirrel, a sycamore tree, a dormouse, a swallow, 38 things in all. We'll identify those as we go through this book. So again, a book without any words that invites you to pay close attention and look. When Ermanno Cristini and Luigi Puricelli were putting together this book, they collaborated with the graphic artist Renato Pegoraro. This, according to the designers, is a wordless panorama of the forest floor. Animals, plants, insects, and flowers are realistically painted so that young learners will enjoy the challenge of spotting them all and trying to identify a whole object by examining only a part. It's a wordless story and a picture puzzle book rolled into one. On the right side of the page here is a photograph of the two main designers who were trained architects, Ermanno Cristini and Luigi Puricelli. Here's your challenge as we go through. Can you find all the creatures and plants that live in the woods? Summer is not quite over. Fall hasn't quite arrived, and we are walking in the woods. Step softly now, and you will see some of the creatures that live here. Shh! Don't frighten them away. Who knows? If you keep your eyes open and look very carefully, you just might see them all. Remember, we're in the forest at floor level looking. What do you see? What is this? How about this? These are big legs from a large animal. This animal has a little claw here and one hoof. What is this animal? Now we can see the animal whose legs we saw before. This is a deer. Right here. This is a kind of butterfly called a sulfur butterfly because of the color it is. Growing on this tree, these leaves are English ivy. And these two trees are red pine trees. What else can you see that's in this illustration that's growing and alive? On this page, we can still see the red pine tree. What about these things that are circled? What about this? And this? And this? And can you remember what this is? This living thing crawling on the forest floor is a centipede. This leaf is from a blackberry bush. This small animal that looks like it's related to a mouse and a squirrel, that's a shrew. And do you remember what kind of butterfly this is? It's a sulfur butterfly. On this page, there's a mammal, a bird, an insect, and a tree. Just some whiskers are showing on the snout of that shrew. This common bird is a robin redbreast. This is a stag beetle. The beetle's climbing on a tree that's called a linden tree, and there are more leaves from that blackberry bush. Two animals here are easy to see, but there's more. Can you find them? All these bright green leaves are part of a fern. This looks almost like a ladybug. It's a milkweed bug. This fellow, who's easy to see, is a glass snake. Could you see the spider hanging on the edge of the web? This is a garden spider. And the last living thing that's easy to see is a snail. There are 5 things to find on this page. See if you can find them. How about a toadstool? Do you know what a toadstool is? There's a slug. There's a wren. There's a shelf fungus. And there's a sulfur butterfly. Here is the toadstool. Here is the slug, which looks related to the snail without a shell. Here's the one we know from before, the sulfur butterfly. This bird is a wren. This, growing right on the tree, is called a shelf fungus. Looks like wood mushrooms. And this well-disguised little rodent down here is a field mouse. 4 living things to look at here. Can you find them? There are red ants. There are chestnuts growing on a leaf, a branch. There's a red squirrel. And there's the talons, or the claws, of a hawk. Here are those red ants crawling across a leaf and across the forest floor. Here is the red squirrel. The red squirrel is interested in the chestnuts growing off the chestnut tree. And swooping down, unseen, is a hawk whose talons are ready to grab. More red ants, the talons of a hawk, a sulfur butterfly in the sky, a hare, close cousin of a rabbit, some chestnuts that have fallen to the forest floor, the husk of a chestnut that's been broken open, and we can't see this animal because it's hiding behind this leaf here. Behind the leaf is the shrew, who likes to hide. Do you remember this one we've seen before? This is the milkweed bug. Can you tell whose body this is? The fluffy white tail? Yep, that's the other end of the hare, the mammal that looks just like a rabbit. This is the bark of a chestnut tree. These are the husks that it drops, and inside each husk is a chestnut. One last new thing on this page. This is a cyclamen. It's a member of the primrose family, a cyclamen. What can you see on this page? A plant you might recognize? A bird? A butterfly we've seen before? This bird blending in at the edge is a blackbird. And this plant with the distinctive shaped leaves and the bright red berries. This is a holly plant. Some people decorate their homes with these at Christmas time. This tree with its spotted bark, this is a sycamore tree. This is one of the leaves from the sycamore tree. Two different birds and a type of tree we haven't seen yet in the forest. This bird is called a cuckoo. This bird, looking at the other bird, is a screech owl. And this tree with lots of white bark, and this tree with some of the white bark still on it and some of the bark missing, both of these trees are birch trees. And these leaves, these are leaves from a birch tree. This beautiful bird looking for food on the floor of the forest, this is a pheasant. And just going past the pheasant is the sulfur butterfly. You can go back and see if you can find all the animals in each of these pages. Here is the list of the identified living things: insects, birds, mammals, trees, bushes. You can see if you can find them. And this is a bigger, easier to read screen page on which you can see all of the animals. So, red ants. Can you remember where we saw them? Birch tree. Can you remember what the bark looks like? Snail and slug. What do those two have in common? A stag beetle. The English ivy. These are all things you can go back and look for. This page, for example. Can you remember what there is to see on this page? Can you remember what kind of tree the one kind of insect is crawling up the side of? Can you remember the name of this bird? Can you remember the name of the butterfly that came up from behind the deer and went all the way through the forest? What do you see here? A type of bird, a type of plant, a type of tree, a type of butterfly. This Look and Find Nature book has been in the woods. It was designed and put together by Ermanno Cristini and Luigi Puricelli. They had graphic assistance from Renato Pegoraro